Y'all, we have to talk about this TV show that just dropped on Netflix called Something Really Bad Is Going to Happen. First of all, I feel like it's a channel message, but also I want to give you all a review. So if you're watching this, guaranteed to be some spoilers, so just keep going. I usually don't create spoilers for the TV shows. I prefer you all to watch it. It won't be too much, but I just want to speak freely and speak my mind. So let's talk about it. First of all, I want to tell y'all about what it is and why you should probably watch it. Come on. Come on. So before I give you my opinion of the show, I want to start off by letting you guys know what it's about. And I'll start with the core message, the core root story that this entire series kind of bases around. And essentially what it's about is a generational curse that started way back in I want to say a couple generations, because he kept saying great grandmother, great grandfather, but it essentially started with a husband and a wife, and the wife and husband, fiance really, were madly in love. But right before the wedding, the husband dies. And the woman is so devastated, she runs out into the forest and she essentially screams into the night, "Bring my husband back." She was speaking to death, begging and bargaining to bring her husband back. And death hears it, figuratively, but literally in the story. Death hears her plea and comes to her and says, "I'll bring you your husband back if you believe he's your true soulmate." Now, she's confident in that. So death brings him back. And then he leaves her at the altar. That was the start of the generational curse. That every woman now that is a part of this woman's bloodline, if they were to ever get married, they have two choices. Well, two options are on the table for them. Either they marry their true soulmate, or they die. So those are the only two options. Either this is your soulmate and you live, or this isn't your soulmate unbeknownst to you and you die. And that's the start of a generational curse. So it goes from her generation, then it passes down to the next generation, and the next, and the next, and the next, until we get to the core, the main character of the story, which is, I believe her name was Rachel. I think it was Rachel. It definitely starts with an R. But now she is about to get married. And the story is centered around her and her fiance and what they go through in the process of leading up to this wedding, including her now understanding what the curse is. Unbeknownst to her, she didn't know. But the town that she's being led to is her fiance's parents' cabin for the weekend, because that's where they're going to have the wedding. They're going to have it at the cabin. And they go on these different trials and tribulations on what it means to like really understand what it means to have a soulmate. It's a pretty sick, twisted concept surrounding what you believe your soulmate is. But it's a very interesting way to introduce the concept of what it means to have a soulmate. Because throughout the story, they start shifting through different perspectives on what you think is going on, which I think is brilliant writing, because in the beginning of the story, or the beginning of watching it, they spin it in a way that makes you feel like her fiance's family is out to get her, but they end up switching the narrative, because it's almost like it's catering to the fact that most people, when they go into certain situations thinking they have certain things figured out, but they don't. And they kind of tease you a little bit like, "Oh, you must be sick. Like, why would you think we're trying to kill you?" Just playing off of the both her and the viewer's heartstrings, because it's like, well, you guys were weird, but I guess you weren't all the way weird, right? One of the more beautiful parts in the story was the mom giving them advice. And essentially what she said was, marrying the wrong person can make you feel like you're drowning at the bottom of an ocean. But when you marry the right person, you're immortal. Now here's the thing. The story starts to get a little more interesting once it shifts from the narrative of you thinking the fiance's family is out to get her to now the more personable level on what it means to and how you get to know somebody and get to know the person that you really think is your soulmate. And that's why I say I think this show is actually brilliant, because when you think about it, you really do go into certain situations thinking that you have something figured out. So in the story, she ends up meeting the great grandfather that started the curse, the one that left the woman at the altar. He was cursed since he left her at the altar. He was cursed with having to watch her generation, each generation, go through every marriage and watch them either survive or die right at the altar as a witness. That was his curse. Since you left her at the altar, you're cursed to witness every single marriage in her bloodline. And he was like 200 years old. And he met Rachel, the main character, and told her about the curse. And that's when she was more so like, okay, I believe it. Because not only did he tell her, it was confirmed because she ended up meeting her. So first and foremost, obviously, I'm trying not to get the story mixed up because you really do have to watch it to understand where I'm coming from with it. But she ends up meeting back up with her father, who she's estranged with. Her mother died. She never met her mom because of the curse. The curse took her. She ended up getting married to someone that wasn't her soulmate, but is still obviously her father. So her mother died before she was even born. Like, her father had to cut her open out of the belly, out of the womb. And it was a journey of her now that she knew what the curse was. Now the story shifted back to her through her lens and what it meant to, because he kept asking the same question, are you sure he's the one? So this is right before her wedding. And this old man, this 200-year-old man, comes to her and is like, are you sure he's the one? So again, it keeps shifting through these different perspectives. At first, you think it's about the fiance's family. Then you think it's about, the fiance. Then you think it's just about the bride. But it's really just a story about self, honestly. It's a story about, like, are you sure he's the one? It's a story about generational curses, but also about soulmates. Because once the narrative started to shift back onto her, and she did have to find out, is this your soulmate? Are you sure? Because if you're not, you're going to die at the altar. What I think is beautiful about that too is that it displays just how much a woman needs to trust her intuition, which is very important, because throughout the story you see her questioning herself, and the red flags were there. So she's now triggered into all these different questions and trying to get to know his family, trying to get to know who he really is. And the story keeps unfolding. Like, you learn more about his brother, you learn more about his sister, you learn more about who he really is, which is why, in my opinion, I don't even really like him. I don't like the fiance. Watch the show and understand why I don't like the freaking fiance. I'm actually cool off him. I think he's a coward. But you'll know why when you see the ending. It's only 8 episodes. I think it's like maybe an hour long per episode. It's definitely binge watchable. But yeah, I just wanted to speak my opinion on it because it got me like in a really deep introspection, like the concept of a soulmate. Even at towards the end of the story, she starts to reflect the questions back to the viewer. Like, are you sure? You have to be very careful about who you choose to marry. Are you sure this one is your soulmate? And it's just, it was crazy because at one point she even got into almost like a psychosis, thinking, well, I need a guarantee if this is my soulmate, because she wanted to live. She was like, okay, I need some sort of a guarantee. Almost so much so she was willing to do witchcraft to put a spell on herself to make sure that he was her soulmate. But she was willing to make so many changes and sacrifices to herself, all the way up until her and the fiance finally just exploded into like a truth, and it ended up having to, and mind you, if she did not marry, that curse was going to spread to her fiance's bloodline if they got married by sundown. So right before the wedding, they keep going through these arguments, and I think it's just crazy, y'all. I need y'all to watch it so we can talk about it and come back to the comments. Let's talk about this show.